like we live 30 minutes away, 10 minutes away, 15 minutes away, 3 hours away. But there are people who can hold a relationship or a friendship regardless of the distance between them. And what it comes down to is desire. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dr. Denisha Keating Show. I am actually so excited to be talking about this conversation because I think it is one that needs to be had, where we talk about friendships and relationships and why we are so lonely as a society. Now, I have talked to so many people about this. I have watched this online for a really long time, that generations are craving relationships. And when I have shared about this and brought this up, I have had an overwhelming amount of people say the same exact thing. Now, there are some people who are excluded from this conversation because they're like, my relationships and friendships are great. I don't feel like I'm lonely in a crowded room. But so many of us have grown into a social media relying on, let me rephrase that. We rely on social media so much for connection that we have lost the connection that's sitting across that kitchen table with us. Now, as I was starting to look into this, I was looking at a lot of different things and noticed on social media, at least, that there is a lot of abusive behavior that is promoted, if that is in a relationship or if that is in a friendship, of things like pulling pranks to an extent of physical assault on the person just to get video likes and video views, which is disgusting behavior. It shouldn't be happening. I've seen countless videos on social media where we're putting each other down just because, and you go to the comment section and oh my God, it is ridiculous. There are so many things that it turns into be about an all about me thing. This then translates into real life relationships. When someone is sitting across from the person sitting in front of them, they can't get off their phone. And I am also guilty of this. Sometimes being on social media is a lot easier because there's a lot less risk involved. I'm able to turn it off when I need to turn it off and not have that uncomfortable conversation with someone sitting across from me, versus when someone is sitting across from me, it feels a little bit more like I'm seen. It is easier to hide. Now, I was listening to Mel Robbins talk about the let them theory, and I think it's a great theory. It's nothing new. It's something that I've actually heard before. She actually says the same thing. She heard this before. She started implementing it, and she started seeing this crazy thing happen in her life where she was letting people just be who they were instead of trying to control them. And then she was releasing relationships that were no longer beneficial to her. But one of the things that she talks about while she's doing this book tour is she talks about that friendships are developed based off proximity. Have anybody ever noticed that maybe you had friends and suddenly you don't anymore, and it's because you were not in proximity to them? It's very discouraging to hear so many be able to relate to this. It is easier to use social media to create a facade of a relationship and a facade of being close to somebody because we can follow what they post. Yeah, social media is only the highlight reel, blah, blah, blah. But people have actually started to get way more real on social media in the last couple of years than they have ever before. It has become people's personal diaries that they let public. And that's fine. I do the same thing. I share my story online. I have no shame in that. But I do it in a particular way, and I don't overshare for what's comfortable for me. That's not for everybody. But what I have noticed is over the last decade, it has been very difficult to find friendships that go over the proximity line. Now, let me explain. So within proximity, usually that means people you go to school with or go to work with or you go to church with. Those are who you become friends with. But now we've kind of taken it a step further, is that we don't even do life outside with that person. So it is only within school, only within work, only at church that we do life with somebody. We don't invite them into our homes. We don't invite them into our circles. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And I started to really think about the times that I've lost friendships, and it was because we were no longer in the same vicinity as somebody else, the proximity, sitting beside them, with them, knowing what they are like on social media. If I don't follow someone on social media, I don't get updates on their life. That is not a friendship. A friendship is conversation. A friendship is someone who can challenge you. We have acquaintances. So when we start to look at the proximity of somebody, we actually hold value in their relationship. And it's really sad because I have seen this time and time again. People are like, we live 30 minutes away, 10 minutes away, 15 minutes away, 3 hours away. But there are people who can hold a relationship or a friendship regardless of the distance between them. And what it comes down to is desire. It comes down to the want to be in relationship with them. So yes, proximity has a part to do with that friendship. But what keeps the friendship alive is the desire to. You guys, so many of us make the really horrible excuse that we can't text someone or call someone back, but we can post to social media. We can doom scroll on social media. We can watch a movie. And I get it. Sometimes we just need to unplug and not take on the whole world. I get that. But what I've noticed, and even in my own self, is that if it's not convenient, I won't do it. If it's not what I want to do, I won't do it. Anybody else relate? Or am I alone in this? I don't think that I'm alone. Sometimes we're friends with people who have different interests than we do, but friendship is a give and take. It should not just be a take. So maybe you're on the receiving end of everyone's just kind of taken from you and you're not really getting anything back. When you text a group of your friends or a person and you say, hey, I'm having a really hard day, and there's no response coming from the other side on many occasions, I hate to say that it's probably meaning that this is a red flag for it being a one-way relationship. If the only time that you ever hear from someone is when someone needs to vent or spill what's going on in their life to you, and then you don't hear from them again, that's not a friendship. That's them coming and pouring out and then leaving. Now, here's the challenge. Are you that friend who's doing that to other people? Do you only pop up when you see something on social media? Do you call people? Do you text people? Do you try to communicate with someone? Or are you only I remember you when I see you? There's been a lot of times that life does happen, and there are going to be situations where someone does not text you back, and that's okay. Humans, we're humans. We're going to forget. But if that's the norm, if that's all the time, and you're saying that's my best friend, you're going to have a hard conversation. You're going to have to say, hey, this is how this makes me feel. And then the hardest part of a relationship or a friendship is that we have to then, after having that conversation, give it time and try. And if it has not changed, then we need to let them be where they want to be in our life. Maybe they don't want to be the best friend anymore. Maybe they don't really care if they are or not. And it may be more than it's not that you did anything wrong, but it's just the fact that hole for them is filled. And hard way of saying it is you didn't make the cut. That sucks. I've been that friend. They still love and adore me, but we're just not as close as we used to be. Nothing happens in the relationship. You just draw apart from each other. But what I've noticed is that social media makes us feel a lot closer to strangers than we really are. Some of my closest friends are living in different states than me. The only time we catch up is text message, phone calls, or online. That doesn't mean it's not a friendship, but it is a give and take. I can text them, they can text me, we can call, we can set up virtual dates, but there is something different about being in proximity to someone that when something happens, they can physically come over and sit with you. My greatest friends that I get to sit with, we try to meet once a week, and that's hard because of schedules, but we still try. I'm trying to get myself out there. I don't have a big circle. I have a very small circle of friends, and that has dwindled over the years, and those seats have been empty sometimes, and that's hard. But I can't force someone to want to be my friend, just like you can't force someone to want to be your friend. But I'm going to be the person to say, hey, we don't get to be selfish in this relationship. It's not all about us. It is about the other person. So maybe we're the person who's taking a lot and not giving anything. And maybe we're the friend giving a lot but not taking anything. And that's not a true friendship. And I forget who says it, but I was seeing a reel yesterday where someone had actually said, you know, a friendship is a friendship that you can go through hard seasons with, have a conflict with, and overcome. But too many friends actually want this no problem, no complications. They just want kind of more of a person who's not their friend, but more of an acquaintance where there's no issues ever. That's not a friendship. And this guy was right. That's not a friendship. One of the things that we have to understand also is that we, people my age, 35, and people who are 19, 20, is that we build our relationships off of memes and or videos. That's not a conversation. That's not a check-in. That's to, it does kind of get you to know who you're friends with, but it is not the end all be all. You actually need to check in with people. You actually need to have a conversation. If that's sending voice memos, if that's sending text messages, if it's having a phone call, whatever works around schedules. But it's the bottom line is, if someone wants to be your friend, really be your friend, they're going to accept you in every single season, and it's a give and take. It's not just a take on either side. We live in a time frame right now where a lot of us are lonely. A lot of us are struggling for community. And a lot of us can find that community at church, through organizations. If it's like an entrepreneur thing where you go in and meet with other entrepreneurs, you can even find friends through social media. That does happen. But we cannot rely on just having a take relationship. We need the give and take. We can't just have the take. If you want to have long-lasting, deep relationships, the hardest thing is you have to let go of the expectation and just kind of say, here's what I'm looking for. And if that person meets it, they meet it. And if they say, this is all I can give, accept that. But where I struggled the most was I was trying to put people where they didn't want to be. For seasons, they'd be my best friend. And then that dwindled and went away. And that was hard. And I kept trying to pull them to the best friend route. And it just wasn't working. And it hurt. And I cried a lot. And then I just had to have a hard conversation and say, where are you at? I would love to hang out more. And those responses sometimes back was like, I would too, but I am really struggling emotionally and mentally, and I have not been able to show up. I have been in my bed. Like, I'm barely making it to work at this point. And I'm like, okay, no pressure. I'm here when you're ready, and I'll check in on you, but I would also appreciate that back. And then there's grace that's given in that situation, because there's mental health stuff going on. I've also been on the other sides where I've said, hey, this is what I would like in this friendship. And they have said that I'm not going to give that to you. I'm okay with seeing you once a year, or just through text, or just through social media. And that's where I had to let it go. And it was the hardest thing. And I still struggle with that. Like, I still miss people and I still want to hang out with them, but I can't chase people. And I can't put people where they don't want to be. And it's kind of funny. I was talking to my husband about this the other day. I was like, do I take like best friend applications? Do I put my name out there? Do I like have an interview with them? Like, as if I'm like gonna have them submit this job application? And he's like, that's actually kind of funny and kind of sad. But I'm like, yeah, but that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I am looking for people who are going to commit to trying to be my friend, at least trying. And I told him, I said, the last time I felt this isolated the last time that I'm going to be honest and raw here, when I was being homeschooled, I wasn't really being homeschooled. Like, let's just say that. Like, guys, like, I literally was homeschooled by the television and Google as it came out, and like Bing and Yahoo and AOL and all these things. And my parents didn't take us anywhere. We were always home. Like, we didn't go to groups. We didn't go to church. Like, we were too far away from where we attended on Sundays. But there was these moments that I wanted to talk to someone so desperately that I am myself, like direct message myself. And back then, when you used to message yourself, it would pop up the same message. So it would be like, hi, how are you? And it would be like, hi, how are you? It's the same message just populating back. And I would just message myself. And then I get really annoyed because there was no human connection. And that is happening right now with AI, is that so many people are actually using AI as a companion. They're using AI to talk to because they don't have any friends. And I know what that is. That's loneliness. That's hard. I've been there. It's nothing new. It's just a different outlet. But AI is not real. Social media is not real. You could follow someone for years and they won't recognize you in the streets. Some will, some won't, but most of the time they won't. But there is this thing that what we've done is we've replaced human beings with a phone. And then when there is someone sitting in front of us, we don't know how to have a conversation. And then when it comes to conflict, we cut people out so fast. So with building relationships, to build a healthy relationship, communication is there, and then let people be where they want to be. You're going to face less disappointment that way. You're going to face less hardship and heartache that way, is when you let people be where they want to be. You're going to understand that. But when you're trying to force someone into a position that they don't want to be in, they're not going to want to show up there. They're not going to want to do it. So as hard as that is, we have to get back to learning how to be friends. And that might be where you take an application and say, what are your hobbies and when in a conflict, how do you handle it? You can't just run away from a conflict. You can't just say that's how you're going to handle it. And maybe if that's someone where you want that as a friend, cool. But for me, I don't want someone who's going to pull away when there's conflict. I want someone who wants to deal with it. But the truth is, as so many people have discovered, we all have that little kid inside of us that is what we resort to when we are hit. And if we're going to just sit there and say, well, you have to accept me as I am, you're not being a good friend. A good friend is someone who's going to say, you know what, even if I am non-confrontational, I am going to try to have this conversation that's really hard with my friend because it's needed. Not because I want to beat them over the head with a bat, but because it's necessary for both of us to be able to be heard. And I might be misunderstanding the situation at hand, and I need to let them speak into it. And then when they tell me what they have to say, I need to let them be where they want to be. Relationships are hard, and it's not easy. One of the best relationships I have is with my husband. And what makes our relationship so good is that we talk a lot. And when we misunderstand something, we say what that frustration is, and we don't attack the other person. And we look at them and say, okay, I'm going to try. I think I have a harder time at this than he does. But it's like, I want him to win. That was something we actually learned in premarital counseling, was that your job is to let your spouse win the argument, meaning you don't go in wanting to win. You want them to win. So you're not going to put them down. You're not going to try to trip them up. You're not going to try to make things bigger than what they need to be. You're going to say, you know what, I want you to win today. And we need to apply that same thing to our relationships for friends, is that I want you to win today. So I'm not going to assume ill intent. I'm going to say, you know what, maybe there's more going on that I need to let them speak into. And maybe they're in a season of life where they cannot give what I'm asking. And maybe, unfortunately, maybe that season of friendship is over for now. And maybe it'll come back. We don't know. But we need to let people be where they want to be. So if that means you have to sit down and do an interview for your friends and be like, where are you at? Why are we disconnected? Why do we not talk as much as we normally do? Yes, busyness can get into that. But if you can post on social media, you can send a text. And I think with that, that's where we end. So go out, stop relying on AI, stop relying on social media, and learn to have a conversation with someone across that kitchen table.